This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Welcome to the G-Spot Podcast. I'm your guide, Katie Silcox, bringing you your weekly self-love soundbite. Join us for conversations around sex, spirit, and all things self-care. All things self-care. All things self-care.
This is a journey into sound.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
You are a G-Spot Podcast with Katie Silcox.
What's up, everybody? It's Katie here with the G-Spot. Yes. Yes, thank you so much, Doobie Brothers. Doobie Brothers bringing it home for us with Jesus is Just All Right. This is Katie Silcox. I'm bringing you those slow jams from the 1970s that make your heart open. Hey, everybody. You guys, it's our 100th episode. I can't believe it. I can't really believe it. We've had I think, so many great episodes. I hope that they have been beneficial for you, for your body, for your heart, for your soul. And I want to thank all of our incredible guests that we've had on the show over the course of several years to get us here, this 100th episode of The Spot that is trying to keep us all sane and full of sap and full of light on the planet right now. We've got a big juicy topic for you today. It's been something that I have thought really deeply about, and and that is the topic of, just that little thing called love and light. Love and light, guys. Love and light are not fashionable anymore. I don't know what happened. Actually, I do know what happened. You see it a lot now in the yoga world, the meditation, spirituality world, the wellness world. This new fad, this new idea, it's so cool. Like, we've been working a lot with the mudra in Shakti school where we're holding our hands up, right, in kind of the shape of a cup, left hand, right hand. Like, that's really what this time is asking us to be able to do. And it's really, I think, on the highest level. And that is to be able to hold more than one thing. And for those things to feel really oppositional at times and maybe even completely opposite at the same time. And so today I want to talk about why Jesus is still all right with me. And Jesus can be whatever you want it to be. But really, love and light are still all right with Katie Silcox. And I want to give you a little bit of background around that and why I've been thinking about it a lot and wanted to do a whole podcast on it for my community. And why I think love and light actually still are our only hope. And so let's talk a little bit about that. There's a lot of confusion going on when in the yoga world, in the spirituality world, in the wellness world, and in the culture at large, when we say toxic love and light. Another one is toxic positivity, which that one I can get down with a little more. So let's kind of go into that argument for a moment. And that is that, and by the way, we're going to hold up both hands. I'm not making any argument one way or another. It's a place where we can be able to actually understand these concepts and then be able, hopefully, to see that the way, the Tao, the Dharma, the way, is actually to be able to hold both. So the whole toxic spiritual love and light thing came about, I don't know, but I think maybe in good faith, with this idea that, when somebody's going through a tough time, let's say, someone just lost a loved one, or maybe someone has gone through some really bad experience. Maybe someone's dealing with therapy and some deep stuff starts to rise up, maybe old memories, maybe lineage karma. For people who have held in a lot of frustration and emotion, let's say for really good reasons, right? And imagine that person comes to you and says, you know what, I've been going through a really tough time. This stuff is really up for me. And you say to them, oh, you should just cheer up, and hey, you should look on the bright side, and well, hey, don't worry about that. Let's look over here. Let's talk about something happy. This I really get, right? It's this toxic positivity, right? In the sense that we're essentially kind of denying that they're going through something. And what I will say about that is it's oftentimes the person who wants to deflect from that person's real experience because they are actually uncomfortable, right? When you're experiencing an authentic emotion, if that person maybe hasn't felt their own experience or their own authentic emotion, or they're not comfortable with their feelings, that expression might be really uncomfortable for them. So I totally get why this phrase has come up. Also, another phrase that we hear a lot is spiritual bypassing. And that's a phrase I used to use a lot. And I really feel like I was one of those on the forefront, along with my friend Jeff Brown. A lot of people in our industry of the spirituality / wellness world, I feel like Jeff Brown comes to mind, but there are others who really were at the forefront of saying, hey, you know what? Like, it isn't just about being present in the moment and love and light. Like, sometimes it's really that deep excavation, right? That going into the dark night of the soul, that going down into the dungeon and finding the lost parts of yourself, the uncomfortable parts, the sad parts, the angry parts, that it brings us to the gold, right? That releases that trapped energy and lets us actually move forward. And that journey, as all the mythologies of all the traditions teach us, that journey's a mess. That journey's messy. And so I just want to make it really clear, all this stuff about not wanting to spiritually bypass is so relevant and so important. But here's where that argument or that perspective goes off the rails, in my estimation. And that is that we have a misunderstanding of what love is. Love is never toxic. Love is never toxic. Real love, if somebody's going through a tough time or anything, right? Real love is the capacity to stay present with what's arising in the field of experience without condemnation. You guys, real love is what Buddha, Jesus, all the teachers have been talking about. The real authentic yogis. Real love is the ability to be with what is rising. And that might be something really tough and something really wonderful. So I want to make the case that love can never be toxic. Even if you are fighting, right, righteously for justice, even if you are dismantling something so that you can move into health, right? The way that the body works with problems is often really messy, right? The body has pain. The body has inflammation. The body has tremoring, right? The body does things that don't feel good so that it can reset itself into health. And I feel like that's really what's going on a national, global, international level with coronavirus, with the current socio-political, cultural upheaval. As my colleague, Dr. Scott Blossom, said to me the other day, their systems theory, right? Environments undergo a period whereby the environment actually like destroys itself a little bit and has a recalibration period after that destructive period to enter into a new fruitful period. We see that in the Hindu cosmology of the gods, right? Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. This is important for us to know right now, that there is the God of destruction. There is the God of sustainability. And there is the God of creation. And they're constantly in an ongoing recycling of one another, right? So that changeability of destruction, destruction, sustained periods of balance, and then creativity, that is an ongoing cycle of Shakti, of power, of nature. That's always happening in the material world. But there's something called the matrix of support. There's something underneath all of that changeability that one could argue in the body is the field that is holding the cellular individual matrix together, that is holding the organ bags together, that is holding the individual experience within the tribe of humanity, that is holding planets together in the universe, that's holding. That holding thing is dark, right? Look at the cosmos, right? All of us are floating in a sea of blackness, emptiness, spaciousness that is simultaneously empty and full. That holding is the field of love. Love doesn't judge any of this, right? And so the problem happens when we get confused on what love actually is. And I'm of the ilk that believe still that love is our only hope right now. And that means I can hold, or I practice to try to be able to hold the really difficult stuff that's coming through right now and not forget who my real mother is. And my mama is that dark, empty, endless field of love. So I want to lovingly, as I become somewhat of an elder in this community, I want to warn us against the weaponization of love and light. Because if we are going to truly empower ourselves, we need to have the love in our toolkit. Now, at the same time, I totally get why everybody's like, dude, watch out with your toxic positivity. I'll tell a quick story. I used to live in the south of Spain, and yoga was just yoga, meditation. It's what I call the pop yoga boom was happening in our world, really the early 2000s. And I was in a yoga studio with a friend, and a woman walked in, and by the way, I don't have any ill will towards this woman. She just was really embodying this toxic positivity thing, and it had nothing to do with the words that she said. And that's why we really also need to be careful about things like social media, because we're reading words, and words don't hold all these different, what the teachings call vanis, like there are all these different voices. So I can speak to you from my heart. I can speak to you from my belly. I can speak to you from my womb, or I can speak to you from my throat or my head, right? And within the placement of where I can speak to you from, I can also put with the words a bhavana, a sentiment, right? A feeling tone, an emotion, a taste, a rasa. And that is going to completely change the way in which that is experienced, hopefully by you, but definitely through me, right? And so I can also work with the position of my hands. So if I speak to you and my palms are facing up and my heart is open, that might be a very different way of receiving than if my, palms are in fists or I have my arms wrapped around my chest. My point with all this is that there's so many levels of how we are speaking to one another besides the vocabulary or the words or the lexicon we're using. So this woman walks into the yoga studio, and a friend that I was with, she looks at her, and in this very weird, I'll just use the word weird, in this very weird tone, they were having a conversation, and I heard her say to her, well, that's because your heart chakra is really closed. I mean, I can totally see that. You really need to work with gratitude. Now, this was a friend, I won't go into her personal details at all, but this was a friend that was going through a divorce. Really tough stuff. And this so-called, spiritual yoga person was sort of pointing at her and telling her how her heart was so closed and how she needed to become positive and be grateful. I think this is a great example of just the opposite of what's helpful. What is helpful in this moment? That, to me, is not love in action. One of the ways that we know, you have to be the one who determines if you are really in the room with kindness, or if you're just speaking words that say, oh, we're going to be a community that values compassion and inclusivity. But what does that really mean when it's in your body? And trust me, I don't live there all the time. All of us have moments of reactivity. But I certainly know when I'm in the room with love or not, when love is in my body, when I'm coming from this place of kindness and wanting connection. Hey everybody, this is brought to you by one of my favorite Ayurveda products, Ahara ghee. It's the ghee that I personally use in my own kitchen, and it's the one that I fully stand behind. I personally know the owners, and I can assure you that this ghee is always cultured and truly grass-fed with third-party verification. And what I most love is that they make this ghee in small batches in the traditional Ayurvedic way. That means from cultured cream and slow churned, sourced from small family farms and pastured year-round. As if that weren't enough, this is the first ghee company in the world to be animal welfare certified by A Greener World. This is the ghee to buy, you guys, and we'll make sure you get those links in the show notes where you can go head over to Ahara ghee. I spent several years of my life working with the dark goddess Chamunda. Chamunda is the opposite of toxic positivity, right? This goddess invites you into really the spaghettification of your ego. It is not a very fun experience. And I feel like she's really alive on the planet right now. She strips away everything, all the supports that you thought were holding you up. And in that pregnant moment between cleverness of the ego and wisdom of the soul, in that moment, it can be quite terrifying to feel the supports taken from you. But hopefully, the end result is that you actually begin to see the real support that has always been there, that is always going to be there, and that has never left you, not for 1 second, no matter what was going on. And I feel that I can speak with some small amount of authority on working with the darkness to tell you that dark doesn't mean anger. Dark does not mean terror and fear. When you go down deep into this mother named Chamunda, what you find is that the darkness is actually love. When all the supports are ripped away and you have nothing left and you lay your body down into the blackness, what you find is that you are held. in something infinitely kind. And that doesn't mean it doesn't suck on the way down, right? That doesn't mean we don't have to confront all of our blind spots. It's so real. But our only hope is love, you guys. And love as a practice is still all right with me. Also, for the past many years, I've been working with the nervous system and the way in which I and we can come out of states that can be called, I don't even want to use the word trauma, because I think there's also misunderstanding around that. Like, folks think of trauma as something horrible that's happened, and that actually is real for many people. But when I'm speaking, so we can think of capital T, right? Like war and horrific abuse, and right? But then we just have little t, and it's the way in which something happened in your life that was so scary, and usually we're very young, that our bodies just weren't able to move through it. And it sets up a nervous system pattern where it can get reactivated. Now, what's tricky about this is that we see this with Holocaust survivors. We see this with the African American community whose foremothers and forefathers have gone through so much trauma. We also see this in any community, regardless, irrespective of your skin color, where our lineages have held capital T trauma. And maybe you're bopping along, you haven't really had anything major happen in your life, but yet we're manifesting the symptomology of that, okay? So I think that is also being pulled to the surface right now in our world. The question is, how do we get out of it? And what I've learned from working with somatic experiencing, organic intelligence, the worth of Kathy Kane, I'm going to provide some links in the show notes to all this, the incredible anti-racism work of several people who are trauma-informed and a little bit more love-informed and informing. What we see over and over in the biology, you guys, in the physiology, and this is humanity, this is universal, what we see is that what trauma does is it polarizes. It says us versus them. It says this is all good or all bad. Trauma says people don't do bad things, people are bad. Trauma says I'm not safe and I don't feel safe. When maybe there's a good reason you have to feel that way, and we don't need to diminish that felt experience. But I want to make some room for the fact that sometimes our feelings of what's real are trauma informed. And what's real is we're not actually there. We're not actually in the present moment. So what trauma does, I know a lot about this because I have experienced a lot of this in my own body and in my own system. So what trauma does is trauma tells us we're not safe, when maybe in the moment you actually really are. And then there are whole, cultures and communities of people and family systems where we live in this all the time, right? And it's really uncomfortable. So what does that have to do with this love and light are still all right with me theme? Well, when you're in the trauma vortex, it's incredibly seductive. It robs your attention. It takes you down like an eddy, like a whirlpool. It sucks you in. And then it can become the prism and filter through which you see everything and everybody. It's like a dog that gets beat by a bad owner who happens to wear, like, let's say he wears like a black baseball cap all the time. Now, let's say that dog gets rescued and gets given to a really great family that would love it and never do that to it. But because of what happened to it when it was little, now every time it sees a man in a baseball cap, it freaks out. We are in that moment collectively. And that's not to say there aren't moments where a really bad man in a baseball cap is there, right? But most of the time he's not. And so we're like these little puppies, right? All of us have this stuff. And we all have our own version of it depending on our backgrounds and our lineages. But what's currently happening is that now any baseball cap, our little chemistry, our body, our nervous system goes into that response. And we can have so much compassion for that. It's like, it makes complete sense. But in order to get out of it, there's the trauma vortex, which sucks you in, and then there's the healing vortex. And the healing vortex is a lot of good stuff. It's your relationship to what I call spiritual matrix of support. I work with Christ, Mary, and lots of other helpful beings. For me, my matrix of support are my helpers, like my healer, mentor, my therapist, my mama, my sister, my best friends that have earned my trust, nature. My body is also sending me signals that I'm safe all the time when I actually am. And sometimes those signals can get hidden over the signals that tell me that I should be afraid or angry or sad. There's always signals that I'm safe if I can find them in the body. The healing matrix is also like watching a funny Netflix or snuggling up to your puppy or your child. It's being in the arms of your beloved husband or wife or boyfriend. You know, you guys know what it is. It's always there for us. There have been many a being that have found God in a hospital bed or a prison cell. So it has nothing to do with, your station in life. We can always access it. And some environments make it easier than others, and I don't want to discount that. But what I would like for us to think of as a community and share this with others is that love and light are required if we are going to move into darkness, and if we are going to heal old wounds, and if we are going to bring up things that are really tough or they just arise. We don't sometimes have choice. The thing that enables us to have the safety and balance to be able to digest the dark stuff, the challenging stuff, the scary stuff, the traumatic stuff, that thing is love. It's God. It's support. Right? You can call it whatever you want, but if you're working with someone one-on-one, the way they can hold you and show up for you and be with you through really tough stuff and dark stuff, that's still love and light. All right? We need both, you guys. We need both. We need to not shy away from these trauma vortex, but we need to titrate it. And we need to really build that healing vortex on the day-to-day. And that's what sadhana is. That's what a spiritual practice is. That's what a meditation practice is for. Because that dark stuff is going to come up. It's up. It will continue to come up. And we need to fortify our nervous systems and fortify our emotional bodies and fortify our psychologies in a way that can be that ojas, as we call in Ayurveda, that can be that psychophysical immunity that can be able to withstand the force of the virus when it rises to the surface to be sloughed away. We work with this at Shakti School. It's what we're committed to doing. I'm committed to being a place, and our school is committed to being a place where we can teach people how to build the healing vortex so that these vicissitudes of society and our physiologies that will inevitably arise because we are spiritual beings having a karmic experience that what my teachers and ancient masters have said tends to be a rough ride, that within that we can build the fortitude to be able to withstand our own individual and collective karma. So a big part of that means not re-triggering everybody and not re-traumatizing everyone, and actually awakening to what is good and what is right and what is actually working and what throughout the time immemorial has been shown to work. There's a lot of science that backs this up as well. We find in our studies of sociology that when people feel safe and when they feel valued, they are able to make big changes. Did you guys get that? That's the healing vortex. That's the love vortex. When people feel loved and when people feel valued, that's when we can actually make change. When people feel devalued, when people feel unloved, there's literally, our brain, actually the part of our brain that can change, shuts down. It completely shuts down. So I'm going to provide some really juicy things for you guys in the show notes. One is this amazing teacher that I've been working with who has a platform called The Theory of Enchantment, and the Shakti School. This is what we do all day, every day, and we specialize in the embodiment of this. We specialize in giving you guys the tools and techniques to relax yourself enough to feel that vortex of love and support that exists all around you. It seems silly to say this, but I want to be so bold as to say that as long as I'm here, we are going to be a school that values love above all else. And from that place, wow, what can we do together to help dissolve darkness and dissolve pain? That's really what I would like to be all about, and the mission of my little tiny individual life. And if you think that sounds all right, maybe we're a place for you. I want to say that we have a big announcement. In September, we are going to be dramatically shifting the way that we do things over at our subscription program. We are going to continue to have we have about 100, I think, practices for you guys, videos and audios that support you in this journey to resiliency and health and love matrix. That's all going to stay there. When you join our subscription program, you get immediate access to all that, but we're adding something. And that is, I'm going to begin to do what I call spirit sessions every month with you. You're going to get a workshop with me, essentially, around a 2-hour workshop on creating a spiritual connection, crafting a spiritual practice, being in the practice together, lecture and practice. And it'll be live in Zoom, and then it will live in our subscription program. So it's kind of like a taste of some of the things that we do in Ayurveda school, but also not strictly Ayurvedic. So if you're already in Ayurveda school, you still need to be in this if you'd like, because it's completely different. It's where we really can dive into the spiritual practices every single month. And what I'll also tell you is right now, it's $18 a month. It's going to be going up. I think we're going to be $65 a month because you're going to be getting a lot more. So if you want in now in the old price, we're going to grandfather everybody in who was an original member at that ridiculously reduced price. And then starting September, it's going to be at the much more expensive price, but still way worth it for all of my compendium of my entire life's work in there, plus live workshop with me once a month. So that's all happening. Super excited for our new subscription model. And plus, it's going to be so much fun for me to actually be with you guys live. We've listened. We've had a lot of great feedback that said, look, we want to do something on Zoom every month. Really new, really juicy content that I hope will be pertinent to the time and the moment we find ourselves in. Lastly, I really want to thank all of you, dear sweet listeners, because you guys support the podcast, and we would love to continue to give you guys these free podcasts. So please rate us, share us, let people know. That's how we get to stay online and in business. So thank you for making the Ghee Spot a really wonderful place to be. And thank you for joining me on this, our 100th celebratory episode where, yes, Jesus is still all right with me. That's right. Enjoy. Thank you, guys.
फूटे फूल अपन सुखे फूटे फूल